welcome, and we're glad you've chosen to join us. Your time is valuable. So we've thought out how to have a conversation without actually having the outcome predetermined. It's an emerging community that we're inviting you into that takes the opportunity of a conversation to both be stimulated to a new insight, but then to build that into how a community can hold it, embody it, and take it out into the world. So listen in and be part.
Very. Where does the core of it all come from? I've never been asked that.
Well, and it's not an easy one. I'm sorry to hit you off.
No, it's
that
great.
Deep at the beginning. But honest to goodness, you show up in so many different good energy ways. I'm kind of curious what the container or the center of it is for you.
Yeah, Damien and I were talking about this a little bit when we went on a hike a while back. And I think I don't have clarity around the individual piece of my core yet. I think something that I'm learning in all the investments within myself right now, and have been for the last 4 years since moving to the Bay, meeting Damien, you, doing all these things. I still don't fully know where the individual piece comes from, but I do know that like I get a lot of fuel from my community and the vitality to which is driving a lot of my choice to be external, to be connecting, to be sharing, to show up is coming from the reflections that I see within others. And so whether that be like a Facebook post and speaking to a challenging time in conversation, and actually having friends who I haven't spoken to in years comment and reestablishing that connection and the build of the community. I think the incorporation of unique, unknown, different, and deep have landed really well with those around me. And their response has been really fueling for me to continue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're drawing me back. We moved our family to the Bay Area, as you referred to. You've been here 4 years, you said?
I've been to the Bay Area it'll be 5 years this December.
Okay. We came when I was 29 years old. And just put roots down. I mean, this is where we wanted to grow old. So, so far so good, right? I've been here 30 plus years now. And we came largely out of a desire to find community, to really unpack our bags with some others. And what would it look like to spend life on a long haul together? And, looking back now over 33 years, it's been one of the richest ways that I've self-discovered who Barry is. I had gifts that I probably didn't know, but I was using them big time back in my late 20s because it's what the world seemed to affirm in me. But I was on a deeper discovery. I wanted what I could bring, but I was still trying to find myself. I was still looking for center. And I'm the kind of guy that I just don't sit well in a chair and get to center by myself. So I've actually found a community over year 4, 5, and 6, to be honest, that had enough of me in them. I've been with them for 4 or 5 years, that they could begin to mirror back. They begin to tell me things about myself without doing it directly, where I started to find more of my core. So I wasn't just living off of them. They were helping me to find myself. And man, Kyle, if that wasn't the biggest surprise, I thought I was there to serve them and help them and be with them. And really what I was doing is I was on a search for myself, and I knew I couldn't discover it outside of relationships. For me, for how I'm wired.
I love it.
Maybe that's why you and I connect.
I'm 29, Barry, so that landed. That landed in a really great spot.
I've said this today, man. You're way ahead of my 29 marker. Okay, I'm not going to tell you where you're at, 'cause I don't know. But seriously, where before you moved here 4 years ago? Where were the earlier years for you?
Old Town, Orange County, Southern California. Born and raised, like the sandwich of what is it, Santa Ana and Tustin.
Yeah.
So,
I came. Well, we came via New York, I had 2 years, almost 3 years, Terry, my partner and I, but I didn't know this, but I really wanted to get out of my Midwest roots, which were prior to the New York years, because I got that down. Everybody we all kind of understood each other. And if I was to use the word mirror again, I would just tell you, yeah, it was pretty much looking at me to see other people. And I wanted diversity. I wanted to go get to the deep end of the pool. I wasn't trying to be arrogant. I just needed a bigger group of people, a more complex social situation, more diversity in which to kind of play my game, to kind of find out who am I? And I don't know if you relate to that, because I don't know what Orange County was like for you and you're growing up here, but I wanted to get somewhere where the people and the stories and their backgrounds were far different than mine.
Yeah. No, I love it. I mean, diversity is energizing.
It is.
Like
It's
the unknown is energizing, sure.
Yeah, no, it's for other people. And I'm not saying this is good for us, bad for them, but you and I both know, because we work with people, it freaks a lot of people out. And you actually lean into it.
Yeah.
You do. What do you get from it? Can you tell?
So it takes me back to when did I'm thinking on the first time I realized that diversity felt good to be in. And I honestly would say in probably college was one of the first realizations. I went to UC Irvine, Zot to all my anteaters, if anyone's there. Do you know that that's what they do?
Yeah.
Sports game. Okay.
Yeah. But you're only 3 of you guys in the whole world know that. So I'm glad you put it together again.
They're getting to be a pretty big school now.
I know, I shouldn't say that. We love our UC Irvine crowd. All right.
But I felt special. I was the minority as being a white male, and that was awesome. It was such a cool experience, because I would walk into a room and it was just different. People interacted with me different, and so in some ways it felt like learning a new dance, like a new dance move. Because I related to people in high school and middle school, and they interacted with me in a certain way, so it wasn't just my own personal development that showed up in that new dance. It was also the people around me, which put that on a megaphone. And when I moved to the Bay, I had a whole new diversity. My career, my personal development, all these things were flipped upside down. And so that unknown and fear and having people like Damien come into my life at a time that I was scared and had my head between my legs at so many times, and then telling me it's okay to do that, and I got you. Talking about learning a new dance and feeling I feel so blessed with the probably some of the coolest dance moves I've known thus far in my life.
It came out of you taking some of the bigger steps, if you will. Which goes back to the dance metaphor in a crazy way, but you kind of on purpose came somewhere to discover more moves, more dance, more the ability latently seated in you. You had enough confidence to get up here, and then you approached what it really meant to be here. And like you said, it gets scary. And then you found some people to say, hey, welcome. You know something about yourself that brought you here. Don't freak out now. Stay with it. Maybe I'm giving more credit, but it feels like you knew something coming out of college. You wanted a bigger dance floor.
I knew I always wanted a bigger dance floor, but I don't think I ever really knew why until I got to the Bay Area and got complete on some things that were inauthentic with it.
Oh, now you got me curious. I mean,
nice.
Do you mind the question? What were some of those little discoveries?
I was big. It was growing up as a kid, I took on the identity of being bullied. And for so long, I had one friend, or at least in my experience I saw myself only having one friend. And so at a very young age, the story of needing everyone to like me came really clear and true, and particularly with those who were, I guess, like managers or leaders, like the teachers. I needed the teachers in particular to like me so that I felt protected.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it led me into, one, being the parent to my parents at a very young age. It led me into, now I'm going to be working in the direct service mental health field at 17, which was awesome. Like, I went door to door to all the psychologists in my neighborhood to see if they would hire me. One person did. I ended up working with a 9-year-old with bipolar, and also being a resource for his mom, who was a single mom barely making it at 17 years old.
Oh my
but
gosh. That's amazing.
I did all those things because in a way it was me protecting myself.
Wow.
I was going to insert myself into a career that would give me the tools to allow me to connect with everyone really well.
Good insight.
And it wasn't until I left that field and moved to the Bay Area. Like, when I moved to the Bay Area, I got a job at a level 2 residential treatment center where, like, it was locked at night. They could leave during the day.
Mm-hmm.
I was there 6 months knowing I didn't want to stay in the direct service field. I wanted to get other experience because I didn't know what. I don't know if it's a combination of, one, the transition, but two, the first job was a small group insurance broker, where I lost all the things that I had known in terms of strengths and things I could lean on.
You said you lost those?
Yeah, I was doing paperwork.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha.
And when I lost that identity of counselor or helper,
yeah,
it was a really rough ride, Barry. And it was that rough ride and being held by my community that allowed me to see that I had built these strengths out of fear. And today I'm super excited to continue to explore that fear, but also see that I have a strength there that I feel like I've just scratched the surface with.
Yeah. I love how you're dropping some thoughts out of reflecting. Only at 29, can you imagine the stuff you're going to know as you keep this going? But your strength out of fear. I'm writing it down. Because you caught it. I mean, I don't know how we capture decades or years or how life gives us a category in which to be reflective, but certainly one of your subtitles already is how strong I got out of the running from fears or whatever it is. I mean, and I heard that earlier, adult skills at 17, which tells me who you probably were at 16, 15, 14. In fact, if you were parenting your parents, you're probably looking for your childhood even as you play today. Because when we take on the circle of sufficiency that's not ready to give to us what we need, and that usually is that original unit of mom, dad, or family, when that circle's not sufficient enough, then you outgrow it quickly. Maybe. I mean, I think I did. And then I used what I outgrew it with. Then I used those skills to get affirmation in other circles of sufficiency, which mainly going to other adults and saying, hey, I think I could be likable. Yeah. And here you are now already acting adult in an adolescent body. And people are actually like, here's what's crazy. The world will say, oh, well, come on. I mean, nobody checked you back in that day. They just would, hey, you willing to do this? And you're like hustling it and you kind of know it and and all of a sudden the world will let you get by with that all the way up to going into insurance. And then you're like, oh, this is not me. But the world kept saying, hey man, if you're going to show up, we're going to use you in so many words. So it's really interesting to catch you at this time when you're like, okay, brakes are on that. Like the insurance guy for you, be wonderful for somebody else, but for you. And then you're like, I'm going to lean back into some of the crazy guy that came up here to get on the dance floor. But not for fears this time, but out of a genuine, authentic sense of who's Kyle and how do we know him? Something like that. That just sounds so.
That was an awesome reflection. I really am humbled by that, Barry.
Well, I'm like, I just think that you know that your strengths came out of running from fear. Somebody asked me years ago, are you chasing passion or are you running from fear? And I thought, okay, I'd never had it, like I've read it now in other ways, but I'd never just had it like put so directly in front of me. Are you running from fears and developing strengths and people are appreciating you're transacting and all, or are you really about who you are and what is really your authentic passion? Like, which one are you, Barry? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm both. But I want to be the guy that's chasing passion, not running from fear.
You want to be the guy that's chasing passion, but not running from fear.
Yeah, so there really is a real Kyle, and he really was early on showing who he was. He was just in such a needy world that he had to grow up fast. But like the innate, authentic Kyle is probably really good with people, probably really engaging. I mean, some of the things that you did early on by age 17 is probably pretty authentic, but the context was overwhelming.
Right, absolutely.
Very fearful. So now you're running from fear, but actually there is kind of the seeds of your real true passion maybe, and you're finding it again. Like you're like, oh, you know what? There was a me in there. I just wasn't in the context to be safe with myself, to actually know some of who I am. And you sound like to me you're reclaiming that in a courageous way as you're like in this season.
I really appreciate that, Barry. I feel really seen by you right now.
Well, that's because you're showing me you. I mean, come on, I can't rip you apart. And I don't want to go too far like guessing you out, but I mean, it's sacred when a guy begins to open up both the wound and the gift. And then you find out they went together. And you held your wound long enough that it started to transform. And now it's becoming your gift. It's kind of cool. I mean, it really is. It's pretty special to watch that happen in your life.
Thanks, Barry. I wrote down that even what you said about even today, I'm looking for the childhood where I missed the points. And that landed really well because I launched an 8-week meditation program and it just, this is me playing. I love leading visualizations. I do it in my coaching practice. I've met incredible people like my friend Raj Kumari, who I've just gotten intense amount of resource and tools from. And I feel almost giddy when I was leading the visualization on Thursday because it was playful for me. And so I appreciate you saying that, and it stood out to me.
Well, you got to say more about that because your way to put it together in ways I didn't even think about, but your childhood is asking you to play with what I'm saying is maybe an original passion or an authentic strength. And so when you start to play, you're really being Kyle.
Totally.
And it goes back to the guy who uses dancing as a metaphor. Like, come on, so what was so good about Thursday? Well, you kind of lost yourself into playfulness, and yet something sounds like very meaningful emerged.
Yeah. I like wrote up this draft of like a visualization and I was kind of winging it. And you know, in that visualization, the invitation was to like feel certain feelings and see if you can toggle between different feelings from one to another. And so that, and just like, in a way, I was sharing a new game for people to play with themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And then at the end, I gave like a 4-minute little, I don't know what you call it, but like a sermon or like a validation or acknowledgement just for them in being. And it felt great to gift that. Like, I love giving gifts.
There it was.
And it was just a flow. Like, I wasn't reading that part off of anything. And so it came through.
See, that's beautiful. Thank you for telling me that. I think sometimes we're shy or bashful about saying we're the flow, just it happened. And a way to own it. And not say, oh, my ego knows how to do this every time. You acted like you touched the power too. You're kind of like with the rest of them going, whoa, I guess I just said that. Or, whoa, I guess this just kind of happened here. But there you were, giving your, if you will, your leadership or your passion away. And you felt more like a child. You were playing.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's a pretty authentic moment to taste.
I appreciate that. It was awesome to taste. I'm so excited for more. So you described being at 29 And is it okay if I go and ask you a
Oh,
question?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Go anywhere you want to go.
So 29, you arrive here from New
Yeah.
York, and you
Yes.
mentioned about having already been doing big things, or what was the word choice you used?
When I came for 29, why
Yeah,
I came here.
you were already.
Yeah, I had a master's of divinity that I had taken out of a childhood kind of vision for my life. And it prepared me for more of an institutional religious setting that I quickly outgrew. It was the strangest thing to have a master's in how the heart works, or how emotions and heart, mind, body, spirit can all belong, which was really something I was treasuring. But then so many of the ways I was seeing it employed, it was on a vocational track where it felt like it was warehoused religion. I just thought, I don't think this is it. And what I didn't know is I needed diversity to find out what this degree was all about. And an opportunity came to do some work at Times Square before it was all swept clean and looks like it does today. But back in the day, it was full of the diverse community you and I were talking about. So I went there thinking that I wanted to see what this holistic idea about perennial wisdom, and for me, a Christ-centered life, but bigger than like a Christianity or bigger than a religion. I want to see what it looked like in real people's struggles and real people life. So when the phone rang after 3 years, it was like, hey, we're out here in San Francisco. There's just a few of us, and we are developing a community that we want to love and serve the city, one another, take that great commandment of like, love others the way you'd like to be loved. And like, we're really not trying to build or scale. We actually want to have an authentic community around it. Is there any way we'd get you to come out here and be with us? So I'm like, already packing with the hand that's not holding the phone back in the day, like, oh yeah. So we headed out here at age 29 to be part of an intentional community. So I'll pause there, because is that the question? Am I tracking where you were asking?
Yeah, I love it. So like you make this move. At that time, did you have the awareness around how you related to your community around you versus the individual? Okay.
No,
So
didn't know that yet. I'm here to serve them, help them, be a leader.
Okay.
You know, I've got a degree and I'm digging the context. And for some reason, I'm drawn to people that are, so we had Janis Joplin's old house in Haight-Ashbury. So, you know, put peanut butter on a bagel and let guys come in off of the panhandle, people that didn't have homes come by. That was already happening before I got here, which is very much a startup. Now that I look back on it, startup community. And so I just sat down into that for about 20 years. And so it was very much a relational platform in which it was getting to hear the other person's story. And we had an intentionality towards people that were marginalized and just, you know, primarily didn't have a place like this. Well, what I didn't know was I was drawn to those people. Oh, quote, I can help them. No, the deeper story is I'm broken too. I didn't know it. I didn't know it till I got into my 40s, that the reason I wanted that diversity was I was trying to find through them parts of myself that were missing, and I just couldn't tap them. And my strengths and my formal education gave me external affirmations, but I was still looking for parts of my own story to complete who am I? What am I about? And I couldn't find it except getting with people who were doing their own self-help or looking in their own awareness. And I was learning from them what I needed for my own life, for the pieces that were missing. Does that make sense? Am I saying that in a way where?
That's awesome. I love hearing you tell your story. Was there a specific inflection point, that a memory that comes to mind when you made that shift? Or brought that awareness to light?
It's more metaphor than it is meaningful. But when we moved from that house, there was a particular day where, you know, we'd kind of outgrown it. So we kept it, but we were looking for another place to kind of gather ourselves. So by week, you could come to the house, but once a week, we'd try to get together in the park or in another place. I found another location. actually up on the campus of USF, there was this little room and we could go up there. And if you know the geography, that's just like half a mile away. But hey, I'd only been in the city for about 4 or 5 months. So it's the time to move from the house to the new place. So we're going out the door, like 12 or 15 of us, to go to the new place on the given weekly time. And I go out the door first. And I head right off the steps. I take a right. So I'm going east. And they're coming out the door and we're all going to walk up there. And it's kind of quiet behind me. And I've taken I'm down 4 or 5 houses. And all of a sudden I hear my name, Barry. It's from a distance, Barry. And it's behind me. I turn around and they're all standing on the steps. Now I'm their leader. And they're standing on the steps. And they say to me down the street, you're going the wrong way. And I went, oh. So I had to come back to community in order to keep being a leader. And that's when Gandhi's quote hit me. There go my people, I must catch them, for I am their leader. And I started realizing you don't lead from the front. Barry, you don't lead from the front. I'll never find what I'm looking for personally, my own parts coming together. Nor can I really effectively lead people if I always know the direction they ought to be going. I'm not listening. I'm simply proactively, using. And so in a metaphorical way, when you said, was there an inflective time? Was there a moment? It really was like, where are you trying to go so fast? What are you trying to build so big? What story are you trying to justify? Like, just come back into your life. These people are where you want to be. And you'll be all the leader you need to be in the connection with others. It's a new form of leadership, Barry. Like that would be like what was slowly starting to get into my head. Does that help?
That's cool. Yeah.
Thanks for asking. Does that resonate anything? And I mean, you're 29. You have a point back in your story already? Or are you looking forward to one?
I have many points back. I think there's still many more that are coming. So I don't.
We know that. Yeah. Me too.
But that's really cool. That's an awesome story.
Well, it's a great metaphor for me, and I watch leaders now, Kyle, through that lens. Yeah, and strategic plans, and a lot of the things we do for business gets us 4 or 5 houses down, but we don't know it's separating us from the very team at times. And it's like, oh, you know what? You don't want to know so much as a leader. You want to connect more. You want to know who you're working with, who you're walking with, what they can do. Yeah.
The conversation you had with Alex, I think it was Alex Duran, about like compassion towards leaders and how essential it is for everyone to have that responsibility. Especially within a company. Like I don't think is a piece that has been, well, at least I've never really heard that conversation out there around how we need to have compassion for our CEOs and companies that are our leaders.
Good listening. He brought that up in our conversation.
It was brilliant.
He's the guy that knew to ask it. He goes, how can we be compassionate for people that are our boss or are the leaders?
Yeah.
And I went, oh, great question.
And so like that inspired me to do the next visualization I'm going to be leading. Like we're going to do it about our coworkers. And maybe you've been at Singularity University where they've had speakers do the like staring activity.
No, tell me more about it. I mean, I've been there, but I don't know about the staring activity. I don't think. Tell me.
Well, at least for the GSP that I was working in 2017 with Manny and them, like someone came in and did an exercise where we formed 2 large circles. One was within another, and one circle would be going one way and the other circle would be going the other way. And you'd be maintaining eye contact as you go by one another. If they would say stop, you would have like 2 minutes with that person and you just hold eye contact.
Yes.
And there's something like really moving about just seeing the reflection of yourself within this person's eyes.
Yeah.
That like people started to break down and like, who is amazing. And I don't think we look for the reflections of ourselves and the leaders that we may serve or work with. And so I'm going to do a visualization where it's like, let's create that experience, because we might not be able to do it in the screen that we have with them right now, or if the offices open up, but there is something there about if we visualize being face to face with the CEO of our company and being able to see the reflection of our own soul within theirs, that I think can really effectively open up that compassion that you're speaking to for all levels of an employee.
Beautiful picture. Now, thank you for filling in like what visualization can bring. Yeah. And I do remember a singularity, versions of that. Yeah. Because it's powerful when you kind of have to get the title out of the way, the pecking order of positions out of the way.
Yeah.
Almost your strengths out of the way, and see that person. The person will later leave that circle and put back on their leadership hat. They'll have to wear their title. We're not against responsibilities. Just business in its hierarchical mode has no circle. It only has a pyramid. And everyone's trying to climb to the top of the pyramid because the reward is supposedly greater. It means that they've reached their full potential. It's where the power is at. You and I both know the pyramid has been the structure for a long time. It became in vogue 10, 15 years ago to turn the triangle upside down and say, the leader should be at the bottom and serve everybody else. And, metaphorically, I can buy that. But I think you're onto something much richer. And that is, how do we keep a chain of command and a pyramid, if you will, but we have circle time, right?
Totally.
Because you're known differently in the circle than you ever can be. And 15, 20 minutes in the circle is more than 8 hours in the pyramid. And we need them both.
Yeah.
Like not canceling one.
Right. It like businesses and the structures to business are effective in running a business.
There you go.
But when you add the people piece, you need to have another symbol. You need to have some other sort of system.
It's really true.
That works for people. This is exciting.
Now, are you finding that the leader, the one who's called leader over in the pyramid, can that person also be the facilitator to the circle?
Absolutely. I think anyone can.
Okay.
It's
really good to hear.
Yeah, anyone can. If you're like a corporation or a business, like every individual piece is still a piece.
Now, will the circle let that person be that kind of facilitator when they're used to them being the leader? Will the others let the leader take the hat off? I don't know either. I mean, it's an honest question.
Yeah, I don't know, but what immediately comes to mind, I had an amazing time recently intentionally reading, and I read in a hammock, and I plowed through the 4 agreements, and it was reigniting to say the least. But what comes to mind is, I think it's the second or third one, of never take anything personally.
Okay.
And I think that comes to mind for me in this conversation with leaders. Can leaders facilitate the circle? Is one, can the employee not take the leader's identity as leader and their actions personally, but can a leader take responsibility and not personalize if those employees don't let them facilitate? Like, rather than reacting to the rejection, can they hold it and still show up? Because in a similar vein, I think for me as an employee, I can hold my mistakes or however I show up, or even if this doesn't align with the leadership, but I don't need to take it personally as having anything to do with me. And I think if I can do that, if the leader can do that, then I think we have both systems established.
What kind? I'm hearing you.
That was kind of a ramble, though. How did that land?
Yeah, well, fuzzy enough to make me intrigued with it, because there's something in there, right? You and I are both working on it live. Like we promise ourselves no agenda, but here we are. Like, what kind of work does a person need to do, whether they're the leader or the employee? What kind of work can we do? The inner work, I would maybe call it, to be capable of not taking things so personally, or to,
Nice.
you know what I'm saying? Because if the leader does that work, then that leader in the hierarchy can come over and be in the circle and not take everything personal. Or the employee can come over to the circle and not take everything so personal. So how do we allow ourselves, or how do we work with people to let them get there?
Yeah, I love it. I'm super excited the way you worded that just now. So before this time, I was thinking of like, okay, how do I prepare for Barry time? Like this is my first time I've had time one-on-one with Barry.
Oh my gosh! Well, more
all
to
the things.
come.
I have
More
a
to come
Google,
between us.
I got a doc that has all these questions that I don't even have up right now. But what came to mind when I was thinking of like topics and things I wanted to discuss for whatever reason was the idea of reaction compassion.
Mhm.
I think to your question of like how do we work in this? I honestly think it's compassion. I think compassion is the core of it all. And it's compassion to any reactions that we have to one another. If I am reacting to anything that the CEO or the business is doing, there is potentially, I would argue, at least in my mind, always some piece of disconnect because I'm reacting to something. And so I think it's a matter of me being able to respond to myself with compassion to that reaction. If I'm upset for what the business did, it's on to me to respond to my upset with love and compassion, and then be able to have the conversation. I think a lot of folks have the conversation piece because there's a lot of brilliant people in the world, but we don't necessarily have the self-compassion piece to be able to not react to our leadership or vice versa.
That's a very compassionate thing. So if I put it in possibly in a visualization or so, you know, she the leader or he the leader's up there and they're doing something that you just, you know, you're sitting there going, oh man. So you're saying turn that energy. You got to notice it, but you turn that energy not into more being critical, but to say, how can I bring understanding or compassion to what this moment is, or to what maybe they're going through, or myself, because maybe it's me all day long finding the negative in most people. So I could go, how do I reboot, find the compassion voice inside of me, give it to myself and or give it to the people that I am being critical of? Am I hearing you right?
Yeah, I think it has to be with yourself first to be most effective. If like you are interacting with that person from a state of unbalance, the core of your being may not be being communicated. And so you may not even feel heard. Versus if you start with compassion for yourself, have that awareness, and then deliver it in some authentic communication, they're more likely to respond with compassion and in the same point show up more authentically and invulnerably.
I'm trying to go back through the files of my life and realize, where did I see this modeled? You know, what does it sound like in a room? Where did I go, oh, that's what it looks like? I had a really good friend that was speaking at a retreat, and they put somebody up before him, and this person went on and on and on and just sucked the energy out of the room. I mean, it went way too long. And I thought, gosh, by the time my friend gets up there, there's no energy left. I mean, somebody should be pulling this guy's plug. That was prior. I had an attitude. And then like he wouldn't quit. He started pulling slides out and showing slides of stuff. I just went, oh my gosh. My friend gets up like 45 minutes belated and the room is just dead. I mean, it's just, it's bones in there kind of. And he says, hey, let's just take a stretch. So just maybe where you're at, just stand for a moment. So they're standing for a moment. And then my friend says so sincerely, and I'm not kidding you, genuinely, you know, while we're stretching, I just really want to thank. And he named this guy that went before him. I just want to thank you for what you showed and the slides that you brought and the way that you were just telling us about, so much of what was important to you. And just really, just thank you. Thanks a bunch. Everyone be seated. And, he reflooded the room with compassion, which had a new kind of energy. He rebooted the very same dead room simply by offering compassion rather than, well, let's forget that and move me into my high gear and I'll give you my talk. And I sat back in my seat and I went, now there's a person in touch with themselves, because he can't give that to that other guy if he's not in tune with it for himself. And he didn't even get robbed of it being critical of the other guy. He kept thinking, no, compassion, and he gave it genuinely. It wasn't a technique. He really meant it.
That's a great example. I love that.
Then he gave an outstanding talk, and the energy was all there for him. I mean, it was like, how interesting to watch this. I definitely would have done it differently.
Yeah. And, that story highlights so many different layers to what compassion provides. Like, one, how he showed up, like he was energized, balanced, connected as it sounds. And if it shifted the room of others, like, wow, how contagious visible compassion can be energetically to the masses.
Yeah.
Because it feels safe. Compassion, I think, at the core does feel safe. There's a sense of belonging that's attached with compassion.
And I certainly had a choice. I was not sitting inside that circle. And I could now see it.
Yeah.
Like, once you see compassion, like, it would welcome anyone in. But for me not to have already been in, it helped me. Well, look at my game. Because I was so quickly corrected indirectly, not shamed or judged. I just went, oh my gosh, I wouldn't know how to do that. Like, it wouldn't be in my heart to do that.
Yeah.
And I went, oh, now I felt like, okay, when the compassion is played well and I'm not able to be part of it, it gives me a chance to see where am I at in the spectrum. Because I really remember that night saying, I always want to remind myself from this moment forward to be the gracious, authentic, gracious, compassionate voice. Like, I got it. And Damien and I said to each other one time, once you see something, you can never not see it. And I saw it. I saw someone give compassion, and I watched it turn the room around. And I went, okay. Now, I can't tell you it always has that result, but we can always bring compassion, which, we're going to end up living with ourselves 24/7. So I like that picture in my mind.
I do too.
Yeah.
It's I don't know why I keep getting the experience I had at a Soledad Correctional Facility, and this is a loose connection, so I don't know where it's gonna go. But
it's okay. Let's hear it.
Have you ever heard of DeFi Ventures?
No, I don't think I have.
So Barry, it's pretty incredible, man.
Okay.
Like, DeFi Ventures is like an incubator program that is peer-to-peer within correctional facilities, giving them
cool.
like 1,000+ page program, and it's like a year long, and they end up with a graduation in the correctional facility. They redefine
beautiful
the identity of prisoner to entrepreneur in training, like so many layers deep. And I was there at the graduation day. It's like they do like a Shark Tank kind of pitch. And I was one of the sharks, I guess.
Yes, I love that. Which is it breaking confidence? Say which prison or which correctional facility?
Soledad.
You said Soledad. Okay.
Soledad.
Okay.
But
excellent.
They're covered like 40 plus correctional facilities. It's an opt-in program. Like, they've seen the recidivism rate dramatically be impacted by their program. Like, I'm talking like 40% 1 year to like 8%.
Remarkable.
Across hundreds, probably thousands of people. But anyways, the compassion piece shows up because we do like a walk the line activity, where on one end is the EITs, on one end is the volunteers, and we're staring face to face with one another, and we cross the line if you've ever been physically hurt or
And
emotionally
that is a
hurt.
powerful tool. Yeah, absolutely.
Incredibly powerful tool.
Yeah.
And like we were all crying.
Mm.
And it was a panel, it was a cohort of all men. And I think compassion was the piece of having us be there, that they felt seen, and the compassion allowed them to see themselves. And it was so juicy, Barry.
It's powerful. Oh yeah, no, it's powerful, isn't it? The picture you have in my mind is like, yeah, and I can see everyone in tears.
And I think compassion experiences like that,
Yeah,
for myself, for every volunteer, is a really effective maybe answer to the question previously of how do we get there? Well, we create containers where we're like flooded with compassion in some way.
Now I know your heartbeat, and I'm thinking, and see, you and I both slipped into gear with stories being in a community where there was incarcerated individuals or homeless. Number of the homeless guys all came out of San Quentin. Yeah, they nobody to hire them, so they're in the park, and so so I'm with you. So we've learned some things about working in those communities, which you and I both would say have helped us in our own individual growth. Okay, so now we're back up in this business world, trying to translate what's happening in this very real, compassionate community over into business, but only when it's appropriate. Because there's been such a split made in our society that they can't and they shouldn't mix. That a strong leader doesn't need to get all compassionate. They just need to get better product. And so it's like there's then that wall's coming down. But I'm curious about how it is we can take the compassion one community has demanded of each other and learn to bring it over into a place where it's just as needed. Because I'm working with executives and people in startups, and they use the language, they don't know it, of the first community that was talking about parts of me I don't know. There's an addiction here. There's a loneliness here. There's a part of me that's just angry here. And I want to be able to say, well, the tools that the business community could begin to learn sometimes are hanging on the wall of the community that we're learning it from. So you already get what I'm trying to say. You can't just say, hey, we've all got to, forget the context in which we're working. But how do we bring the values of compassion over onto the side where there's supposed to be high productivity, performance reviews? Don't get too close because I might have to fire you. It's a tough bridge as people see it. I'm not so sure it's that far apart.
Yeah, I agree. I hear you. I think it's dramatically changing. Like this is what's been really special, and I have incredible privilege to say that in the external recruiting world, I have the best job. I get to recruit chief people officers all day. And these are the folks that are incorporating what we're talking to into the companies, or at least the ones that like I really align with are. I talk to a lot of head of HR, but they're actively doing this.
Beautiful to hear.
And what's been really cool to see is like the best chief people officers I know are doing it from a business case. I was on a call with someone recently from like a small public company, and they had seen a higher ROI, both impacting sales, customer success, and retention as well. And it was partially impacted from a wellness set of initiatives.
That's beautiful.
And
say more. That's like,
so we're also seeing that learning and development, which was a heavy revenue generated role, like I need to have sales be better, is expanding beyond just the sales piece. It's now expanding to customer retention. It's expanding to employee tenure. And the biggest correlate, I think, let it be said, this is my words, but I think the biggest correlate is investing into your employees' wellness.
I think
or
so.
alignment or personal development or employees' compassion.
I think so. I think it's right on that you're making the case that it's measurable, because business will say,
For
if you
sure.
can't measure it, how do you scale it? If you can't measure it, how do you know it? And we're like, well, it's compassion and it feels like, yeah, see, that's the problem. So what you're able to do is say, no, here's your measurable. It's in your ROI. I can show you employees stay longer when you invest into them personally. Here's your customer satisfaction acquisition, when they know that you're a company that keeps your word and your employees understand that culture and they care for each other. They feel like they're getting into a cared for exchange, right? So you're actually able to say, hey, it's really making a measurable difference to put compassion into your business.
And I think what makes it so hard is that there are too many metrics. There's so many metrics that
That's a good point.
that reinforce this system that we're speaking to, that it's overwhelming. There are like to break apart the potential impact that employees connecting more with themselves may have. It goes into so many directions. It's not just sales.
That's
You could
really a
talk
good
about
point.
resource exchange. This is something that like I've been playing with in my own company. Like I did I give a shout out to GitLab, because they do like office hours for new hires. So new hires drop their personal Zoom link
Cool.
somewhere, and anyone can join.
Cool.
And so I did the same thing. I had like 15 people show up, surprisingly, like never been done before.
Really?
And I've been tracking that. Like I've had so many resources from those people who attended shared with me. And
That's beautiful.
yeah, it's really cool. And in a similar vein, one of the things I'm measuring with this meditation program, if people are doing meditation during the work week, and if people are managing teams, there's absolutely so many metrics that can be looked at, including employee net promoter scores and relating that to customer net promoter scores, and the 360 manager like feedback forms. And all those things can relate to a business's bottom line in some way.
Isn't that beautiful? It's kind of like business discovering what's always been there in the ancient ways, that Homo sapiens and units of people contributing to a common cause. We've had to get complex with all of our metrics and measurables to come back to the simplicity of, so it's compassion. I remember a guy trying to teach me golf not long ago, and like, do this and then watch this and then make sure you're thinking this and swing through the ball and keep your head down and then bring your elbow back. And I look like, it must have been comedy for me to put 17 metrics into just, how about you just hit the ball? You're kind of reminding me, is there a simplicity on the other side of complexity for business? Yes. And it's called like compassion. It's virtuous. It doesn't discriminate against anyone who wants to. We're all welcomed into it. There's a little bit of it in everyone's story. But I love how you're bringing us back to the simplicity of what it's looking for in all of its metrics. Just a good swing that does what it's supposed to do. And I'm not trying to make it elementary. I think you have to break something down and really look at it. Business does that. But then we take the whole and make a bunch of parts out of it. Then we put a manager in all the parts, and they don't talk to each other. But I mean, after a while, we have an organism that doesn't even know how to relate to itself. It's like, compassion could thread through and unite you in ways that you would have such a different ethos as a company if you'd let it happen. And it sounds like that's some of your work in the world.
And that's what work I want to do more of in the world.
Well, it sounds a lot about, like I started with you, like what's the center? It sounds like some of what you're saying is the center of Kyle. Is this guy who so values finding everyone and connecting them yet again to this thread of compassion that you're about in the world, until there's no distinction. Anyone can belong. And it's beautiful that you're doing that in a business and in an executive way, and in a way with people that are just like, it's available. Sweet to see it, Kyle.
I appreciate that, Barry. Thanks, man.
And you're giving it to yourself.
Oh, totally. Like, this is all really like, I have a men's circle that gets together every other week. I did that because I know what it feels like to have men to see me and to challenge me and to push on things that may be like emotionally challenging for me to verbalize. Like I built that system around me because I know it's effective.
So powerful. I don't think anything's changed my life as much as having an inner ring where compassion is modeled to me, given to me, and can be discovered by me. It's the circle outside of my hierarchy and my drive towards mission and things I want to get done. Like I need the forms to help me do that. But the long-term change in my life has come by sitting in a circle of probably not more than 3 or 4. And I found that out, but I've, for 30 plus years, had a circle like that. And to this day, it's the most dynamic place in my life where I self-discover, take care of myself, and then show back up in the world. I love that you've already tapped that in your season.
On that same note, though, do you see yourself ever taking on the Emerson approach and going into a cabin by yourself? Or
Oh yeah.
Have you done that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I haven't. I mean, not long term, but no. I try. I don't want to sound better than I am, but I try to make sure that there's some solitude in my life, on a basis that renews me. We can talk more about that in another conversation, because who I find in that cabin is radically not who I thought was going into the cabin. When you take yourself, as social as you and I are, out of the community that we so love the compassion of, and out of the business and building things, when you take yourself and you meet yourself in a different place in solitude. Solitude isn't being away from people. Solitude is connecting with yourself. And it's been very rich for me to make sure that I have my own quiet time all the way into boredom. And then on the other side of boredom, I start to meet parts of myself that I need to find. And so thanks for like touching on that. But yeah, absolutely.
I would love to continue. I look forward to the continued
There'll be some good conversation there.
Yeah.
Kyle, this has been rich. I knew it would. I mean, you know, we do this because we care about each other. So if it's helped somebody else, that's wonderful too. But thank you so much. I've got a picture of you. You went door to door at 17?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I just think, the powerhouse of who that guy is. Stay close to that guy, you know?
Thanks, Gary.
And you're filling him up with compassion. So I'm just really thankful to get a chance to hear it from you. Thanks for your questions and all the ways you contributed to this conversation. Yeah.
You're awesome. It's so great to see you live and out in the world, and in ways that like I have access to, because working at Singularity, and I didn't have access to you as much, but I was always observing you from the background. And it was always really cool to see how people interacted with you, because even though I didn't know you, I knew you vicariously through Damien's shares about the impact that you've had on his life.
Wonderful.
So everything was so aligned, and I'm just really grateful that you're showing up as you are in the world today, yesterday, and tomorrow.
Thanks so much for that encouragement. All right. Yeah. Well, if you're there with me, let's keep doing it. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks so much, man. Until next time. Okay.
Sounds good, Barry. Be well.
Right. You too. Bye-bye.
So that was another conversation. And again, thank you for joining us, because the contributions each of us made and built on gave us not only something to value in the moment, but now we walk out into the world. So the purpose of BDO Labs was not just to grab time from you, but to actually give your time more purpose in the next step you take in your life. So embody it, practice it, and come back for more. Thanks for being part of our community.